Welcome everyone, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're critically examining a really fascinating evolution in management theory. We are going to analyze how traditional corporate strategic models, which, let's face it, were initially designed just to maximize financial profit, have been uniquely adapted to tackle an incredibly complex goal: public health success. It's essentially a masterclass in how large-scale health initiatives are strategically planned and executed. We have a highly structured agenda today. We'll start with the foundation of the strategic map, then move to action with the balanced scorecard. Third, we'll dive into the public health focus of the SRM, followed by defining SRM metrics. Fifth, we'll look at execution via the 11-column table, and finally, we'll compare the frameworks head-to-head. All right, let's get started with Section 1, Foundation, the strategic map by Kaplan and Norton. Introduced back in the early 1990s by Robert Kaplan and David Norton, the strategic map is a brilliant tool that visualizes an organization's strategy through 4 interconnected perspectives. It establishes a very clear cause and effects linkage. Think of it like a chain reaction. Developing your employees at the learning and growth base naturally improves your internal processes. Those optimized processes then generate satisfied customers, which ultimately trickles all the way up to the overriding goal at the very top: financial success. It's a highly rational, step-by-step blueprint for profit generation. Moving right along to Section 2, Action, the Balanced Scorecard. Now, having a beautiful visual map is great, but a map alone doesn't actually execute your strategy, right? The operational counterpart to the strategic map is the Balanced Scorecard. This framework is what translates all those abstract strategic theories into concrete, actionable steps. It assigns specific key performance indicators, measurable targets, and practical initiatives to your broader objectives. Basically, it quantifies whether or not an organization is actually moving toward its strategic goals. And that brings us to a critical analytical junction. While these tools are incredibly effective for corporate entities, public health isn't driven by financial margins. The ultimate objective is the well-being of a population. So the core question becomes, how do we restructure these foundational management tools to serve a fundamentally different, human-centric end goal? This leads us perfectly into Section 3, Public Health Focus, the Strategic Route Map, or SRM. Enter the Strategic Route Map, or SRM. Developed in 2005 by Dr. Amorn Anandasuda specifically for public health administration, this represents a profound paradigm shift. It adopts the logical architecture of corporate strategy, but it completely rewires the priorities. Instead of focusing on customers and finances, the SRM relies on a network dimension, meaning the integration of local stakeholders, to ultimately achieve the people dimension at its absolute peak, the good health of the public. The real genius of the SRM is its recognition that public health cannot happen in a vacuum. It absolutely requires an active, engaged community network. So how is it built? The methodology for creating an SRM follows a rigorous deductive progression. First, you define a specific public health situation, say something like adolescent pregnancy. Next, you establish destination goals across those 4 dimensions we just talked about. From there, you distill those into 3 to 5 year strategic objectives, which are then broken down into actionable activities, and finally, all the way down into specific daily tasks or norms required for actual operational success. It's incredibly systematic. But here's the catch. A multi-year plan can sometimes lack immediate urgency. Because of that, the SRM is subsequently condensed into a highly actionable 1-year operational framework known as the Strategic Linkage Model, or SLM. By systematically filtering out any objectives that extend beyond 12 months, health officers get an immediate, hyper-focused roadmap for the current fiscal year. Let's move to Section 4, Defining SRM Metrics. For the SRM to function with true academic precision in a public health context, standard corporate tracking metrics had to be explicitly redefined. First up is the Key Result Indicator, or KRI. Crucially, KRIs measure retrospective impact. They literally tell you what has already happened. Think of it like looking in the rearview mirror. While they are vital for high-level reporting to policymakers, they are completely ineffective for immediate operational course correction. Next, we have the Performance Indicator, or PI. PIs are utilized to measure standard, routine operations. They serve as your baseline metric to ensure that planned, everyday tasks are being executed exactly as intended and that operational budgets are being managed effectively. It's the day-to-day heartbeat of the operation. And finally, the Key Performance Indicator. Now pay close attention to this one, because in the SRM framework, the KPI diverges significantly from traditional corporate jargon. Here, A KPI is strictly reserved for measuring key success factors, meaning critical, chain reaction tasks that create synergistic effects across an entire initiative. Because they track immediate or current work, KPIs actually empower staff to make vital, real-time adjustments right there on the ground. Section 5. Execution, the 11-column table. To bring this one-year strategic linkage model to life, we need an execution tool that matches the SRM's collaborative philosophy, the 11-column table. Notice how the operational burden here is strategically decentralized. The first 4 columns are managed internally by public health officers, but look at columns 5 through 11, encompassing social measures, PIs, KPIs, and budgets. These are co-created and actively managed by the external community and local stakeholders. It's a true partnership. Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, Frameworks Compared. Synthesizing our analysis, let's directly contrast these models to really highlight the differences. While both are highly logical, one-page communication tools, their foundational philosophies completely diverge. The corporate strategic map is an insular process. It's driven entirely by internal operations to maximize financial capital. Conversely, the defining strength of the strategic route map is its pivot to prioritize human health. It does this by treating community engagement not as an afterthought, but as a mandatory component integrated right from the very inception of the planning stage. And we see that exact same divergence when it comes to execution. The Balanced Scorecard remains a closed-loop system, formulated and executed solely by internal staff. The 11-column table, however, formally institutionalizes community empowerment. By delegating the majority of operational oversight directly to local stakeholders, it transitions public health from a top-down directive into a shared, community-owned endeavor. It's a massive shift in perspective. Ultimately, this represents a profound evolutionary shift, moving from managing health initiatives for a population to managing them with a population. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this reflection. If embedding community engagement directly into operational strategy is the true catalyst for public health efficacy, what traditional top-down processes in your own respective fields could be fundamentally transformed by adopting a stakeholder-driven framework like the SRM? It's definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining this analysis today.